type things and just want to make sure. I'm sorry, guys. So here we go. About now. All right, so first of all, I need to know if you can hear and see me. And then I need to know if these work. So obviously I could see the Facebook play on it. And I could see this, which didn't work, so we're going to cover that up. I am going to talk. Give me just a second. And this video is going to look pretty whack because I'm going to have to take some things off to make sure that, things are working and what's working and what's not. So I'm going to answer all the questions that are already in there. I hope you guys don't hear that feedback because I sure do. But they say it's so simple, it's so not. But anyways, so the person that you would least likely see drinking wine, Dan from Seahorse, actually is the one, well, his daughter, and he recommended the let me see. I'm so bad with pronunciation. Apothic Red. And so I had to get it, of course. Couldn't even wait for Wine Wednesday. And it ended up being extremely good. So definitely get you some, and next Wine Wednesday, maybe have some in your glass. But anyhow, this has turned into a big old practice yet again. And so what I'm coming to the conclusion of is that maybe it's not the best idea to try to go to multiple sources at the same time. I'm just not as tech savvy as I'd like to be, and I'm ruining the message by trying to get my stupid computer stuff right. So no matter what, I'm going to either start doing it separately or get real help, because this is stupid and I want to help. I want to do something where people can join and conversate. So I'm just going to look at the questions, answer them, and tell you the point that I wanted to make, and then we'll try again tomorrow, I guess. Recommended for seahorses. The temperature recommended for seahorses is anything under 74 degrees. I keep all of my tanks at around 72, and I'm cheap. And so the way that I do that is I actually keep my house via the central air system at, say, 73, 74, and then the tanks, I've got thermostats in all of them, and I monitor them very carefully throughout. I've done tests to make sure that throughout the night it doesn't go down or up too much, and so the tanks stay 72 if I keep my house thermostat at 73, 74. However, if you're in an area where the temperature drops drastically or goes really high at night, definitely we're going to want to look into a chiller, because with seahorses, when people ask the recommended temperature, I always say 74 degrees. The reasoning is bacteria, because the bad bacteria that can grow within a tank can affect seahorses more than they can other fish. And so you want to keep the temperature low enough that those bad bacteria can't grow as fast. And now we got the train. My God, this is just not my night. I'm sorry. So I hope you can hear me, but so you keep the temperature low so that bad bacteria cannot grow and take over the tank and hurt your seahorses. It slows the growth of the bacteria. Bacteria at a higher temperature will grow faster. At a lower temperature will grow slower. That's why sometimes when people are cycling a tank, they'll raise the temperature, because it'll make it happen faster. But when we're talking about bad bacteria, we don't want that growing fast. So we keep the temperature under 74. That's, somebody did some research somewhere, and that was the cutoff. However, the most important thing to remember with temperature is that you don't want spikes. I know a lot of very good seahorse keepers and people in general that keep their seahorses in temperatures that are higher, lower, and outside was a bad idea. and everything in between. Hopefully I'm not screaming in y'all's ear, but I'm trying to make sure you can hear me. And I can't see anything but the YouTube comments, sorry. All right, so the most important thing that you want to remember with seahorses is the temperature needs to stay stable. Stability is key with everything, not just temperature, parameters, all of it. You want to make sure that nothing is jumping around and stressing them out, because really, in a lot of my articles, I say that temperature is the key factor to consider in a seahorse tank. But truly, honestly, it's stressing the seahorses. Making sure that you are able to keep a tank at stable enough temperature, parameters, etc., to make sure that those seahorses don't get stressed out on a daily or on, ever, is the point. You want to keep them in a situation that stays the same so they do not stress out, because they can actually overcome things when they're not in stressful conditions. But as soon as they get upset and stressed and their bodies, get all weakened basically by the reaction to stress. I don't want to get all sciencey, but yeah. So temperature needs to stay stable. I recommend under 74 degrees, and make sure the entire tank can stay stable, because that's what's important. All right. Let's see. Hi, Salty Reef. I posted a link, but I can't even see the comments anywhere. So feel free to join, of course, but I probably won't hear you. I didn't want to take it down. I wanted to keep going to make my point, but I'm extremely disappointed, in case you can't tell, because I want this to work so badly, and I get so upset when, it ends up like this. But I'm going to keep talking. Okay. So, I can't hear a thing. Can you guys hear me? I'm going to hope that's an old comment. All right. What coral is recommended for erectus seahorses? Sorry about the cars. And where can I get coral for erectus seahorses? The Salty Reef said soft corals that don't sting and macroalgae. And the Salty Reef also commented gorgonia are another good coral for seahorses. I will agree with that statement completely. Good job, Salty Reef. Thanks for having my back when I couldn't see the questions. However, I do want to point out that I am a huge... Jeez, these cars are killing me. I live on the street that never, ever has cars going by, ever. But, I try to live stream, and it's a damn circus. I'm sorry. Okay, so gorgonian soft corals that don't sting. Absolutely. However, you have to remember that these are things, parasites, pathogens, anything like that can, hitchhikers, which is what I came here to talk about, can come in easily on any coral, macroalgae, gorgonian, even rock. So the best thing that I recommend for any seahorse keeper to do is quarantine. And I actually had a conversation in a group yesterday. Today, maybe? I don't know. It's been a long week. But there was a conversation that occurred where people were talking about whether it was important to quarantine seahorses if you were adding them to a new tank. And if you already did not have seahorses in your aquarium, established, happy, healthy in the aquarium, is it necessary to quarantine those seahorses I'm reading comments. Is it necessary to quarantine a new seahorse if there's nothing in the tank? Was their point. And they were making the point that if there's nothing in the aquarium, meaning nothing as in other seahorses or fish, then they had the opinion that there was no reason to quarantine. In my personal opinion, and I like different opinions, so nobody's saying anybody's wrong, but my personal opinion, because I've had so many horror experiences, is that, first of all, quarantine is not a difficult thing to do. It's extremely easy, and why not is the biggest thing that I can say to hobbyists. Why not? If it could save everything, why not? If it's for nothing, so what? so you wasted a month or week or whatever. I just don't understand people who don't quarantine because, why not? And someone pointed out that a quarantine tank could stress the seahorses or fish. I disagree. I think that seahorses, if you're buying them from a store or if you're buying them from a vendor, have been through God knows how many shipments, God knows how many different water parameters and temperatures, and they've been up, down, and all around before they get to your house. Putting them in a quarantine tank that you're going to keep extremely stable and make sure that ammonia never creeps up and make sure that they get the chance to calm down and de-stress from all of those shipments and actually observe them, and if there's a problem, treat them, and if not, then add them to the display. My opinion is that's not going to be the deal breaker. I'm curious to hear other people's opinions though, which is why I wish I could get this darn thing to work. And really fast, let me try one more time, just because this really kind of sucks that nobody can join. This will take 10 seconds, guys. And then I'll make my point about the hitchhikers and any other questions. And then I'll keep on trying to get this to work correctly. Sorry. Whoops. Anyhow, the real point, the real reason that I am here tonight, and I wanted to get on before Wine Wednesday, is because I wanted very much to answer a question correctly. I can't stand when I don't have an answer for somebody, and it's actually a good thing because it motivates me to go figure out what the heck I'm doing and what the answer is. And so I think it was MD Reefer or something like that. No, MD something. I'll have to go look. But he asked me yesterday why hitchhikers affect seahorses more than other fish. And when I answered him yesterday, I said, well, they have basically skin instead of, they have bony plates instead of scales, and they have, and I kind of drew a blank, and I was like, well, geez, obviously these things aren't really good for anybody, but why would that matter so much to seahorses? So I contacted my mentor and I did a little research. And one of the really cool things that I realized when it was said to me is the reason is that seahorses rely heavily on their tail. That's their one big safety net. They hitch onto things in high flow, which they enjoy, but they hitch on and that makes them feel safe. In fact, if you set up in a seahorse tank without hitches, you're going to have some stressed seahorses. They have to have a place to hitch. Anyhow, so the problem is that when a seahorse gets stressed, like let's say you've got a fish. Here we go. We're going to do a little example here. You've got a fish, coral beauty, tang, whatever, and you've got a seahorse. And if the fish goes to pick some algae off of a rock, yes, I'm doing some hand puppets here, and it comes across an aptasia, or it's down on the ground and it accidentally gets stuck in the face with a bristleworm, it's going to immediately swim away as fast as it can, right? A seahorse, on the other hand, if it's down there foraging in the macroalgae or on the sand, or it's up here doing picking off a rock, trying to get a copepod or whatever, and gets stung, gets a bristleworm sting in it, aptasia sting in it, it's going to grab on tighter. So if that seahorse has wrapped its tail around something that has an aptasia stinging it, or has a situation where it's eating something where an aptasia is, or something that's hurting it, coral, whatever, they're going to stay longer. It's not stupid. It's that's their safety net. They hold still. They go completely still when they're stressed out. They don't freak out. They freeze. And so they get stung worse. is the bottom line, and they will have worse after effects because of the fact that they sit there taking it. Also, with bristleworms specifically, seahorses have a very different way of eating. We can talk about that in detail some more when I'm not repeating myself in my own ear. But basically, they snick, and they use suction to pull in prey, okay? And so if they go down to the bottom of the tank or to the ocean or wherever, and they go to try to eat what they think is food, and it's a bristleworm, they're not going to know until that thing has spiked all down their throat, all down their oral cavity. I mean, it's going to be a mess, and they're going to have a situation where it swells, gets infected, can't eat, so on and so forth. Not to be all negative here, but I really wanted to know, and it was very fascinating to me to figure out that that's why, because they freeze when they're stressed instead of freaking out like other fish, and they eat differently, and so a bristleworm can cause a lot more damage to something that sucked it all the way down its throat versus something that just gets stung in the face. So, hope you guys enjoyed that as much as me. Hope you don't hear all this background noise.
Can I throw a little in on that?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I actually know of a fellow reefer, Tina, from Tina's Reef, who had a firefish that did not like a bristleworm being in its burrow with it, so he grabbed it, pulled it out, tossed this bristleworm out, and then proceeded to starve to death because it got stung enough in the mouth that it couldn't feed anymore. And firefish are very small, so of course he starved very quickly. And then if they have an involuntary reaction, I guess you're a seahorse,
Mm-hmm.
and he is getting stung. He's not just stung, he's being envenomated.
Right.
So the more he gets envenomated, the worse that is. It's like you grabbing onto a rattlesnake. You got bit once, that's bad, but if you keep holding on, he keeps biting you, it's going to be worse.
Perfect example. You are absolutely correct. That's exactly it. I mean, that's the bottom line, is that they just get it worse. But it was really, what was cool to me is that this stream taught me too. Here I am trying to help people with seahorses, and a question led me to learn something. So thank you. And this is what I mean, is this could be really awesome because everybody learns. And hey, Reefer Madness, I've seen you've been streaming all crazy all the time. I try to join when I'm out and about, but what's been happening over on your stream? Anything exciting and fascinating?
We got on a huge rant about F1 today.
F1, what?
Racing, racing, F1 car racing. Yeah, unfortunately that went off on a big tangent. Don't worry about it, folks. It doesn't always happen, but I happen to be a fan, and there were 4 or 5 fans, and we all saw something in a race today, and it became a topic. But no, we were talking about Michael Aaron's stream today.
Mm-hmm.
You guys actually caught that. If you did, I am the ladies and gentlemen voice. So if you do catch his stream next Sunday, you will see that, and that is me. I have, I guess, a particular style of voice, so.
You do. You have. I mean, your face is wonderful too, but your voice is definitely for radio. Hey, I'm kind of curious. I closed Facebook, so if anybody listening notices,
now guess what? It's working right.
I think so too, and I'm not sure if it's still streaming on Facebook. So that'll be a test, and if it streams all the way, what we said now, onto Facebook, then I know I just got to close it, and that would be a really dumb thing for me to have missed. But of course, again. I can't.
Assume it wouldn't do that, but I can see where if it was playing it back on you,
Mm-hmm.
and the volume or the volume wasn't shut off for you personally there, then it would absolutely do that, because I think I'm no longer bouncing back at me either. So.
Right, and I do see also that I don't think the chat from, if there is any chat on Facebook, it may not have even worked, but I'll look at it later. Okay. Anyhow, when you said F1, I literally, my brain went to, they use labels similar to that for the, how captive a seahorse is the best way to put it. Like, you've got F1s that are, really, that's what I thought of, because you have, your F1s are, your breeders, and then you're at, anyways, I'll stop talking about that. But it was just funny. And I'll have to check out what you said it was Aaron's channel. Is that right?
Michael Aaron's, yeah, Aaron's Aquarium.
Okay, cool. I will definitely check it out. Oh, one more Seahorse thing. I did want to mention that we were talking also about putting seahorses in sumps, refugium sumps, and
Yes, we were.
and we talked about the hitchhikers being an issue. The other typical issue to putting a seahorse in a sump is that it's normally not big enough, unless you're talking about dwarves. And when you're talking about dwarfs, they need constant food. And even when someone has seeded their refugium with tons of live foods, it's like dwarf seahorses eat like 3,000 copepods a day each. So it's going to be really difficult to keep live foods and up enough in a refugium that's also leading to a reef or to another tank.
That's interesting. Say about 3,000 each?
Yes.
Day?
Yes.
Yeah, because a Mandarin Dragonette, which is one that we tell newbies not to keep,
right,
is actually right around 500. So
wow. Yeah, no.
That's high demand.
It is, and they, I think that might, now you've got me wanting to go research that when we get off here, but I'm guessing here, completely guessing, but I'm going to guess that the reason that it's more for dwarf seahorses is because of the way that they are built. They don't have stomachs in the same sense that other fish do. They don't digest the same way, and so they literally eat it and get barely any nourishment from it, and it's gone. That's why so many, if you're going to use live foods like with fry or with dwarf seahorses, it's really important to enrich with enrichment. Like I personally use Dan's Feed. Reed Mariculture has a good one. Algae Barn, I'm sure, has a good one. But there are enrichments that you can feed to the live foods that then they get enriched. They get nourishment from the enrichment because it came through the food. But just regular live foods, certain things have more than others. Like Artemia are pretty much, whereas copepods and rotifers and stuff have much more, but the nutritional profile is different for each, and so just interesting. I'm rambling. Okay.
Absolutely perfect.
But yeah, I'm kind of wondering now if it's not just because of the way that they're built. It's interesting to be on both sides of the fence and see, how things affect both sides. And I see Cruz came. Hi. Cruz, is Craig's volume still really low, or is that earlier?
Did I fix it at all, guys? I think my mic being off to the side might not have been, it's a crappy mic. I gotta work on that. It's fine.
Yeah, that's why I was so frustrated when I first started, is because I've ordered a really nice fancy dancy thing online that wasn't here yet, but I went out and bought this Bluetooth. I asked the people at the store what I should get, and they set me up with this head, like it's a Bluetooth microphone and headset, whatever, that's supposed to be for computers, and I could not get it to work for anything. So I don't know. We'll look at it later, but anyways, I'm just trying to think if there's anything else I had to say before anybody else can say whatever they want. But if you have a big enough refugium and you're willing to set it, make certain altercations to make sure that food stays down there for them at certain times, and there are always ways to do things, is my point. And that's what my mentor and I had a discussion about before I did this stream, is that I'll never tell anybody that they can't do it. It's just that we have to figure out how, and the obstacles, and make sure it's worth the risk. So yeah, but if you got bristleworms, let's just not. And anybody else in here, or is it just us few folks? Or
Looks like there's 8 people watching.
Okay.
One would be Cruz, and I think technically me, so there's still 6 people.
Okay.
And if you don't mind on your stream, I did type it, so thanks for the sub, Novetica. I hope I'm saying that right, Novetica. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely.
To check out my stuff, and I'll be cross pumping. Oh no, that's gonna come out wrong.
No crossbow.
Cross promoting Kelly and the Seahorse Whisperer, because it's interesting. Again, Seahorse guy. Love them.
Mm-hmm.
Have never dealt with.
You guys better believe that by the time this is over, he's going to have seahorses. Probably mine, but yes, he's going to have seahorses. And then he's going to be like, seahorse, seahorse, seahorse. No, but...
You'd be surprised. I'm that kind of person, right? I'd have to source them from here because I don't think you can ship them across... well, you might be able to.
Oh, you're Canada, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm in Canada, so there'd be sightey stuff that we'd have to get around. So there's a guy who breeds them out in, I want to say Calgary. And I think it's only hippocampus. Oh, wow. That's been a long time since I researched that for the life.
Well, hippocampus is the name, and it gets so confusing. If you have watched any of my streams before I started working with you, I can't pronounce stuff and I can't remember stuff. But hippocampus is basically describing the family, and then the species are broke down into like erectus, redi, barbori, that kind of thing. So he's the most common bred is erectus, and they are the easiest for people to start with. But hey, I take road trips all the time. I don't think they're, I'm sure I could find a way to smuggle them. No, I'm kidding. We're on YouTube. I'm just kidding. But yeah. You have a local person breeding though?
There's a guy, Seahorse Canada is the site.
Okay.
Seahorsecanada.ca.
Awesome. Well, I list breeders that captive breed seahorses on my website. So I'm going to thank you for telling me. I'm going to check it out because I definitely want to be able to tell people where to find captive bred seahorses, and I will check them out. Maybe these.
Hippocampus erectus, for the most part, looks like they do. And they use PE mice as shrimp.
Yeah. Awesome.
Which is a Canadian product, by the way, if you must know.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm going to say right now, streaming outside is never a good idea. This is so stupid. Well, I will say last thing about PE mysis is that I got to meet, we just talked about, I can't pronounce anything, but Nuri, the owner of PE mysis. Is that his name? Okay. Anyways, I got to meet him at Magna last year, and he's so great. And the company is awesome, and I've had things explained to me about how they collect and how they make sure that things are fresh and really, really good food product. PE mysis is probably one of two, maybe three top choices for seahorse people as far as frozen foods, because it's really good food. So I'm glad to hear that they're using it. I do too. And so
you were asked in your chat, what brand of salt do you recommend for a tank, or do you have a preference?
Now,
sorry, I'll read it the right way. It's Hi Seahorse Whisperer. What salt brand for a tank do you recommend?
Okay, I just now saw it. See, you're so much quicker than me. What salt brand for a tank do you recommend? I use oh gosh. Yeah. I don't worry too much. My big fear is organics, nutrients, and TDS. So I make sure that I use my RODI machine to put that water at 0, completely has nothing in it. And then, typically I go for whatever salt is cheapest. However, I want to say very quickly that that's just because I'm cheap. I'm actually gonna maybe do a poll in some groups and find out what other seahorse keepers use and what the professionals use, because I might use Instant Ocean just because it's local, it's easy, and it's whatever. But when I tried Fritz salt, and when I tried, oh gosh, what's the purple? Michael salt, Delapret. I'll put some links in the description when I'm done. But when I've tried some of the better salts, it has been a huge difference in like the residue at the bottom of the bucket. And, there are better salts. You're going to have a better time with better salts. So I'll leave it at that for now. And actually, very interesting, just a side comment, is that I wasn't, because of my reef tank situation, and because I kind of do things in the sense that I like to know what's added to my tank. That's why I like to quarantine. That's why I like to know the products that I'm adding. I just like to, add. I seed my tanks with different live foods and different critters, but I seed it. We had that discussion the other day about live rock and how it can create better biodiversity, but I get my biodiversity without the bad stuff because I add all that stuff on my own. So, anyways, I stopped using red sea salt a long time ago, only because it raised my alkalinity higher than I wanted my alkalinity in my reef tank to be. So I did not use red I'm tongue twisted. Red sea salt, after I realized that it was raising my alkalinity. But I actually heard some things recently about about the lengths that they go to make sure that their salt is clean, and to make sure that it cannot possibly in any way have any kind of anything bad from, like, say, the ocean, that I'm really considering trying it again. So maybe that'll be a video. Maybe I'll be trying red sea salt and seeing what that does. Cruz said, yep, seeding bacteria and inverts are always a plus. I learned from the best, of course. And, yeah, exactly. I seed the bacteria I want and the inverts I want. And as much as I completely appreciate you guys coming and hanging out with me, it's like freezing out here. And it was really stupid to try to do this outside. So, if it's cool with you guys, I'm going to cut it short, but I will be contacting you, Reefer Madness, because I want to figure out this audio. I told you when we first started, the audio's my problem. But I can't even hear you now.
I told you fixing a USB headset is the best way to go, but you went about a Bluetooth one, which makes it more complicated, right?
Well, yep. Okay, I'll leave it at that. I mean, I've got a headset that goes through a big, expensive machine. I can't make it work.
My wife just smiled at me and said, you're being mean.
No, that's not mean. But the bottom line is I had problems even using Sean's expensive equipment. So I don't think it's that. I think that if I went out tomorrow and paid $500 for the most expensive blah, blah, blah that's going to plug in, it's not going to work. But we'll see. I could be wrong. This is what it's about, learning from each other. But yeah, no, I think this has to do with my settings in OBS are wrong. That's what I believe. I think that I don't know how to, where it's supposed to be on and where it's supposed to be off. I think that's the echo. But I could be wrong. We'll see. Aqua Turquoise. Do you need a chiller for seahorses? I discussed at the very beginning. You want to keep a stable